Janet Yellen was talking about guaranteeing $17 trillion of U.S. deposits to prevent a bank run in the country. And to be frank with you, I thought that was what was going to happen. I was like, okay, this is it. It's all over. And you know, if I make a mistake, it's like I always think it's imminent, and it's not imminent. I mean, I've talked about it plenty of times on other podcasts. I mean, it's for me, for true sat dollar parity, or for the dollar to become worthless, or for hyper-Bitcoinization. You know, I was talking with Luke Broyles about it earlier today. I kind of think it's probably something between 2030 and 2038.
As a gold stock fund manager and sound money advocate, Lawrence Lepard spent decades advising investors to avoid the constant debasement of fiat currencies by investing in gold. With the creation of Bitcoin, Lepard's task has become easier because the leading cryptocurrency is the better alternative, a digital gold, if you will, that offers adequate. Lepard predicts a super bullish 2028 to 2038 timeframe for the complete collapse of the financial system and the move toward a global Bitcoin standard during his discussion with Alex Jordanov. Lepard uses the Strauss-Howe generational theory to predict when the cycle began and when it's most likely to end. He says that the almost complete collapse of the financial system in 2008 ushered in a new cycle that is progressing rapidly if the world's $315 trillion debt load is any indication. Watch to the end, like and subscribe for more interesting Bitcoin and digital asset videos. Thanks and enjoy.
Yeah, and
why 2038?
It's just a guess on kind of looking at the cycles and the timing and how things are getting shorter, the contractions are getting, you know, stronger and more closely together.
How would you then chop it up then?
Well,
like, because you're like, I guess it's cyclical as well. And
it's cyclical. Well, right now we just had a downturn. I mean, M2 actually went down, which was very rare, you know, because Powell took rates from 0 to 525 in, you know, a very short period of time. But it's M2 starting to grow again, and implying that there's some liquidity and then the banks are starting to lend. It's a little mysterious to me how it's actually happening, but
because it's not visible.
Yeah,
so you see bubbles popping, but you don't know what's
exactly. I mean, they've got a lot of tools behind the scene that they're using, but yeah, I mean, you know, the way I get to the 2030 to 2038 timeframes, I use kind of the model that Howe and Strauss developed with the fourth turning, where, and you're familiar with this model, right? Where you get these, you get these
80 years.
Yeah, exactly. You get these cycles, and so I date the beginning of this fourth turning to 2008. And fourth turnings have lasted from maybe as short as 7 to 10 years in the Civil War, to more likely they're kind of 15, 20, perhaps even as long as 30 years. So if you kind of assume that, you know, so we're not at 2028 will be 20 years, 2038 will be 30 years. I think this monetary system's dead before 2038, way before 2038. But yeah, just completely dead.
And by dead you mean exactly?
I mean the dollar's worthless.
Like just like bullet points would be what?
Yeah, well, the dollar's worthless. Francs were all currency is worthless, and we're on a Bitcoin standard. That's kind of what I think is going to happen.
That's soon. Okay.
Yeah, that's soon. Yeah, but you know, like I said, I've been early and wrong plenty, so be prepared to have me be early and wrong again.
I'll put you in 14 years.
Yeah, again. Well, and I will tell you there are two possible ways they get out of it. Well, there are three maybe. One is they do kind of the playbook we ran after World War II, which is they run really high inflation until they can get the sovereign debt, you know, size down to a place at which they can reestablish control of the monetary system. So they quote unquote kind of save it. It's like a Volcker, but over, you know, 7 or 8 years, right? And Israel did something similar when they had a problem like this. The other thing would be they do a one-time monetary reset, like what Roosevelt did, right? And you know, he grabbed the gold, revalued it, devalued the dollar in terms of gold 70%, you know, overnight. You know, the government, somebody intelligent in the government could realize, hey, this monetary system is failing, we got to fix it. And therefore, we're going to do a 10-for-1 split on the dollar. And old dollars are worth 10, new dollars are 1. New dollar is backed by gold, oil, basket of currencies, whatever it is, but it's backed by something that can't be printed, so it's sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That's right, and that's why it's probably not a high probability that somebody would do it.
Popular either.
It's not popular. A lot of people get hurt, but you know, the alternative is the whole thing fails. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the alternative.
It's like Mad Max.
Yeah. Well, it won't be Mad Max, but it'll be. For a very brief period of time, there'll be a lot of chaos. There'll be a lot of hyperinflation. I mean, you know, we could get to a stage where, you know, you see, you know, Bitcoin at a much, much higher price, and you see a dollar at a much lower price, certainly in Bitcoin terms, same difference. And, you know, they're parallel, but eventually it goes back to what I said in the earlier part of the interview, which is to say that when a consensus of the people realize that the dollar is shit, that there's just no point. I mean, it's good for transacting, but nothing else. They're going to do what the people in Weimar Germany did in 1922. The minute they get a hold of a dollar, they're going to convert it. Nobody wants to hold it. It's like a hot potato. right? They just want to get out of it, get out of it, get out of it. It's called Gresham's Law. You're getting rid of the currency that you know will lose its purchasing power, and you're buying a currency that you know will hold or increase its purchasing power. And so that process will accelerate, and just as in the Silicon Valley Bank instance, everybody at once suddenly said, holy shit, this bank is bankrupt, I got to get my money out of there. It can happen fast. It could happen really, really fast. Now, the US dollar is... It's
the fastest bank run in history.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like time.
Yeah, right?
And
yeah, I mean, it was less than a week.
Yeah.
I mean, half
It was a matter of hours, I think, even.
Yeah, well, one day, $45 billion.
Yeah.
One day. I mean, talk about click money, right? Well, and that's the thing. That's why I say, don't discount the possibility that it could happen, quickly and before 2030, because, we're all so connected with
There are now a lot of worries about the U.S. economy. On Thursday at AllianceBernstein's Strategic Decisions Conference, J.P. Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon gave a major warning about the U.S. economy. He said that unchecked government spending will lead to stagflation, which is a terrible mix of high inflation, high unemployment, and low growth. I think about all the amazing fiscal and monetary support that has happened in the last 5 years, like Jim said. How can you tell me that it won't lead to stagflation? It might not, but I'm ready for it. In a similar speech to reporters at his company's annual global summit in Shanghai, the CEO of J.P. Morgan said that he thought the problem with inflation was much worse than the Federal Reserve was letting on. He said, I think inflation is stickier than people think. I think the odds are higher than other people think, mostly because the huge amount of fiscal monetary stimulus is still in the system and may still be driving some of this liquidity. I look at all the possible results, and once more, the worst one for all of us is what you call stagflation, which means higher rates and a recession. Let's watch Lepard's movie again.
That's right. I mean, in the short term, you could have some real volatility and some real problems. And, that doesn't, to me, I wouldn't worry, anybody who holds Bitcoin, I wouldn't worry about that. Do you know what I mean? I mean, yes, they can try and close the gates, but they really can't effectively close the gates because, absent shutting off all the electricity and shutting on the internet, which I view as just an almost zero probability event, there will be a way to transact in Bitcoin. Do you know what I mean? In some country, in some way. Now, in the short run, if the government made it completely illegal and threatened to throw us all in jail and grabbed all the Coinbase coins, there are a lot of things they can do to throw sand in our eyes. But if you've got your own coin, self-sovereign, I don't see how we come out. And by the way, if the government does any of these things, there's a Streisand effect, right? Everyone's going to go, holy shit, that stuff's really valuable. I got to get some because the government doesn't want me to have it. You know what I mean? There's a reverse psychology piece to it all. So,
but what if the government says just like gold and
they grab it? Yeah. I think what you're going to have, this is not the 1930s in America where people believed in the government and trusted Roosevelt and thought he was a good guy and trying to do the right thing. This is 80% of the country distrust the federal government, and everybody and their brother is going to say, oh yeah, thanks government, F you, we're not giving you anything. And
we see Texas that was basically ready to
right. Exactly. Texas is ready. Exactly.
Army.
You're not going to defend the border. Fine, we'll do it. Right. And I got to tell you, most of the red states, that's how. 25 states back Texas. There are a lot of people in the United States that their view of the federal government is screw you. We're not going to play. And that's what it comes down to. It ultimately comes down to social consensus. If nobody trusts the government and everybody wants to hold an alternative form of money, whether it be gold or silver, Bitcoin, land, food, cattle. In a real Mad Max scenario, obviously, even Bitcoin and gold aren't particularly valuable if you can't, put food on your table. But again, humans are incredibly adaptive, incredibly, flexible, and can do things, really well. And, apart from some short-term disruptions, I think that we get, whatever bad stuff comes, solutions and workarounds happen to it really, really quickly. And so while there could be a disruption that's uncomfortable, just as in the 30s. There was a time in the 30s, a bunch of banks failed, and they shut down the banks, and they shut down the stock exchange for a number of days. I can't remember exactly how many, but it was a lot. And that kind of stuff can happen, no doubt. there could be a real disruption here. But on the other side of it, the things that have value still have value. An ounce of gold is an ounce of gold, an ounce of silver is an ounce of silver. A Bitcoin is a Bitcoin. That's it.
Yeah.
And, it's the dollar that's got a problem.
As with all investors who have taken the time to really study Bitcoin, Larry is very bullish on the leading crypto asset in both the short and long term. He thinks that the price of Bitcoin will go up a lot this cycle, and he is even more bullish on the long term because he thinks that the end of the current monetary system could drive Bitcoin prices to millions of dollars per coin. What do you think about Larry's interview and his very optimistic expectations for Bitcoin? Please leave your thoughts and comments below. Also, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications to see more videos like this.